All right, good morning, everyone, and welcome to our webinar. This morning, we're hosting it together with Siili, and we have Petri Lattu from Siili joining us. Petri, would you mind introducing yourself briefly first, and then I'll talk about the agenda for this morning.
Sure, and good morning, everyone. My name is Petri, and I work in innovation and strategy at the Siili Advisory, and try to come up with interesting and beneficial things on AI, which is basically something that everyone is doing right now. But that's my wheelhouse.
Thanks. And my name is Mikko. I'm one of the co-founders of Vainu, and the past couple of years been working very closely with AI agents, being also the product owner, product manager for the Vainu Gent project. So Vainu Gent is Vainu's AI agent. Today, we'll talk about a concept called artificial customer. Petri will talk about it more in detail. Do you mind, Petri, just in a couple of sentences highlighting what artificial customer is all about? And then I'll start a poll and ask a little bit about how much experience people have with these topics, such as market insights and customer insights.
Sure. Well, there's actually two really big things or targets on the artificial customer. One is how to make even large organizations to be more insight and data driven, and most importantly, make the data approachable and actionable. So that's the first goal. And the second one is something that most of our clients are struggling with at the moment, is that how to make working with AI a natural, almost ritualistic process in the everyday. So there's two main targets for it.
Excellent. So we'll talk about insights and AI generated insights, and using, I guess, both internal and external data, and sort of the voice of a customer in that process. So I'll run a poll. So all of you should see now a poll. What's your level of experience with these type of customer and market insights? So would be great if you can pick and choose how much experience you have with these topics, basically generating insights, maybe with the help of AI, and not only for sales, but for operations in general. So last votes still coming in. It's always good for us to know a little bit about you as well. So I'll stop the poll in a moment, and then I believe I can share. So this is the level of experience, and all answers are, of course, completely fine. Many of you feel that, or only 8% feel that you're experts already, and 15% feeling advanced, and all the others sort of still starting the journey with this type of customer and market insights. Thanks for the answers. But today, as mentioned first, Petri will explain the concept of artificial customer. Then he will also show you a quick demo, a couple of minutes, highlighting how it could be in practice, in everyday use. And then towards the end of the webinar, I'll try to highlight the role of companies and vendors like Vainu in this, when you start connecting these large language models and these type of solutions with external knowledge bases, so that they have access to outside information, also information that is outside the initial training data of these models. But I think that's a good intro. So Petri, the stage is yours. And do you want to share the slides yourself?
Yeah, sure. No worries. All right, let's go, everyone. Okay, a little bit of background, perhaps. I mean, where this idea came from originally is that I made a project a couple of years ago before generative AI for this large Swedish consumer electronics company that sold their goods in, I thought it was in 36 countries around the world. They had the best insight team I have ever worked with. They every quarter made like this 200-page, really granular report on both sort of like, the hard signals, where the economies are going on the different markets, on different consumer segments. They also had these soft signals. Let's say, in Berlin, there's some musical phenomena or fashion phenomena happening, and, you should go and attach your brand to it and these kind of things. Okay, but the obvious problem was that even though the work was great, no one really read it, and it didn't actually create any movement. So what we did, once again, before generative AI, is that we took this beautiful work, this massive report, and broke it down into this snackable content. So instead of providing people, sales teams in Germany, in Turkey, whatever, this massive treasure of data, we gave them almost like tweets. It's like, did you know that this is happening in Berlin? You should probably go and check it out. And that changed everything, both in my head and in my sort of process, hopefully in the company as well. So now with AI, we are probably entering a stage where company strategies or targets or even operating models will not be written anymore. They will be trained, which means that the systems and the targets in the company will be basically these dynamic living systems that then will give people working and operating in companies different sort of, I suppose, goals, triggers, nudges, and these kind of things to make the company more efficient, more productive, and faster. All right, if this is true, then what is the vehicle? How do we deliver all this stuff to basically the people in the company? Every company right now is installing these co-pilot buttons in people's stack, and then, okay, learn to use it and get some value out of it. And I think it's a bit cold. It's like giving a cold shoulder to people. So could we make this more approachable and more dynamic? And once again, the principal tenet here is that what is in the world where there's more data and more data than ever before, and I think, even you could posit that companies are struggling and suffering from having too much data. They don't really know how to utilize and use it. Instead of providing people with everything, you should provide them with something contextual and something related to their everyday life. So that's basically the point. Also, we are entering a world where these AI agents and these kind of things are going to be part of our working day. There will be many agents and stuff like that. And I think also this will have a significant effect on decision making and even responsibilities within companies. We talk a lot about this decision orchestration. If you would work with a team that is AI enabled or AI powered, you probably would be a gatekeeper if you would just micromanage everything that's happening on the team. And also you shouldn't micromanage AI because it's probably faster than you and gives you more variations and stuff like that. So this is a big psychological shift. I think, companies and even everyone basically need to sort of, crack this thing. How do I trust these tools? And in what sort of way is trust created? And I think the next part is that we need to create empathic relationships with AI, because if you use AI like Google, you get Google. But if you actually use it as a co-author or a thinking partner, or have some sort of other sort of almost human-like facsimile of a relationship with it, two magical things happen. One, it's not about accuracy anymore as much. It's about co-thinking and refining and honing thinking with it. And the second part is that there's this power dynamic that changes in a way as well. So that's the artificial customer, basically, in a nutshell. How teams work will probably look like something like this in the future, or even now, depending on the maturity level of the company. We will have things like the artificial customer. We will be then powering people working in companies and succeed. And then there will be agents that are going to be running basically the teams and these kind of things. And then the strategy or the goals or the targets of the team, even on this smaller level, will be then dynamically, basically, then shared and distributed among the people. And this is a really high-level picture of it, but this also will lead into companies probably breaking from traditional business unit verticals into these more agile teams that can create, ship, and even kill sort of like, projects faster than before. So this is sort of like, there has been lots of talk about what's after the corporate agile. We all know probably how well that go, but this probably will be the next iteration of how the organizations and companies are built.
Can I ask a question? Sure. And also, by the way, for the audience, if you have a question in mind, you can use the chat if you want, and I'll keep an eye on that. But you mentioned that the next strategy won't be written, but it will be trained instead. What I did, I'm in the board of few companies, and I've been running an exercise every time when there's some sort of strategy process going on, and in a way it's of course ongoing all the time. So I've been using some of these deep research models and simply given as an input sort of the mission and the goal and the vision of the company. I've explained what type of customers they have, shared some internal materials regarding the plans and products and services, and then I've given a task for the model to create sort of a competitive or benchmarking strategy, because it's been very interesting exercise to compare what deep research model with quite limited input actually is capable of creating versus room full of professionals, people who know the company and the market inside out, and then you can compare the outcome. I feel that there are lots of sort of things that humans simply do not see or do not take into consideration. You might also get sort of a little bit blinded when you know a topic too well. So it's definitely at least been a fresh perspective to run on a side, like a strategy process fully generated by these LLM models. But have you done similar tasks, maybe with Seely or with customers, that you have been already giving some internal materials and actually creating these strategies, or is it
we have
still mainly that people just talk about it, or have you seen concrete use cases already?
Yeah, we have. Well, yesterday we were running a session with a dear client that we talk about the same topic basically. I think one thing to sort of like differentiate is that also the power of utilizing, let's say, these AI tools on strategy creation is that we can run simulations. We can have, let's say, 10 opinions on a certain target rather than having 3 or 2 and these kind of things. And in a way, how we've been using it is that, then we just go and riff and flow and simulate and ideate basically, and then it becomes like this huge swarm of different directions, and then it becomes narrows down. And when it's based on market intelligence, for instance, as you said, I don't know, I'm going to make every service designer, for instance, or traditional even strategist mad right now, but to be honest, let's say that there's 5 really good business consultants in a room studying market insights and these kind of things. And then they give an option or 2 options to the management team of a company. Okay, these are the most opportune directions to take, basically. But what if the same thing happens if there's an AI that goes through 10,000 different market reports and speaks with the voice of 10,000 people and gives 10 different directions, and then you can assimilate them into this one thing. And this is sort of like, bringing the power of the crowd into this AI sphere in lots of ways. So this is how we've been using it and so forth. But there's also this maturity level thing. We work a lot with management teams, and we can start small. Just like, install AI as a partner or co-thinker in these sort of like, levels of companies is already a good sort of like, direction to take. Because once again, there's this level of trust, there's this level of even ego at some point. We want to be the smartest people in the room many times, right? So it's sort of like, distributing or sort of like, giving the trust away and relinquishing your ego as well at some parts. But we've been working quite successfully on this stuff already. And as you said, the current, let's say, off-the-shelf models are already so good that I would say that, I mean, for instance, if you do business intelligence before you're going to do a strategy process, if it's not already a part of your tool chain, then you're probably doing something wrong already.
Yeah, makes sense.
All right. All right, then the artificial customer. All right, and this is something that I've been, and my team has been thinking about a lot. Once again, the two targets here is the one is to make the insights and market data actionable, understandable, approachable, and also how to scale up the use of AI in companies. So basically, it's super simple. It's there's an AI agent that is trained on customer insights, customer data. It can come from dynamic sources like different tools and these kind of things, or backend systems. Also, lots of companies have done excellent customer insight research, for instance, for the last, I suppose, 25 years since IDEO codified design thinking in San Francisco back in the day. We can take all of these historical materials and teach the agent basically with that stuff as well. So it's also this reusing of materials and artifacts that have been created in the past. Then the artificial customer, the agent is designed a personality, it's given a character, and the character is basically based on each company's archetypes or personas or, target customers. Then that stuff is delivered to different teams. And then these people are going to start working with the artificial customer, having a dialogue. What should I do today? Okay, these are the opportunities and the problems I have. And then with the customer's voice, they have a naturalistic dialogue with it. And also it's based on, once again, the wisdom of a crowd or thousands. So taking this vast mass of information and data and narrow it down into something hopefully super effective. So in a nutshell, that's the concept. You can beat it different things on every day. Basically, you can just put your materials in there thinking, you can talk with it. You can wonder, okay, what happens in your life? You can even relate with the artificial customer because, obviously we are humans and we probably have same sort of pain points and hopes and dreams and stuff like that the customers do. So having a naturalistic conversation with the customer, just put that stuff in there. Or your Excels or your PowerPoints. And when you put your PowerPoint in there or even a Figma file or something like that, then you're just actually going to have a dialogue. Does this work? How does it feel with you? And these kind of things. So I suppose one of the biggest things about the artificial customer is that you can build with it. It's not just basically a tool that gives you better insights. You can start building with it and build better based on customer insights. Everyone who's using AI probably should do this a lot. You can spar with it. You can actually go into an argument with it. You can ask it to roast your work and these kind of things. So actually, have the second opinion and create also friction with it. That's probably even more useful. Lots of the language models and also what these are built on are based on positive reinforcement. So actually having a critical viewpoint, you need to push it a little bit. But that's also quite good and kind of fun even. So that's the thing. I already said about the building with it. You can just design your whole process. In the future, this will probably, in our head, replace customer journeys. This will replace customer archetypes. And this probably will break the classical product design or product development cycle. Simulation is interesting. Instead of getting your resources, your team of designers or builders or tech people or engineers to make a quick mock-up out of it, you can have 10 different mock-ups. And then even on the mock-up phase, you can validate, once again, with the voice of thousands. So I suppose this will create way faster and way more accurate workflows from small things like creating a new onboarding flow on your application, or think about, okay, what should we offer the customer next, like H2 or something like that, these kind of things. So this basically the works. And let's go to the next one. And also at some point, it can scale into market feedback as well. So in a way, Mikko, you were talking about management teams and strategy work. Imagine if the artificial customer would be in the pocket of the CEO as well as the customer success person. So in a way that, I mean, this could be an interesting way to also sort of like, popularize working with AI on the higher echelons of the company. And once again, there's this super silly thing behind it is that, I mean, you can argue with systems, but you can't really argue with the voice of the customer because the best companies are customer made. Could work.
One thing that I've been thinking when listening to you is you had the first step that you need to feed the artificial customer with lots of data. For example, I guess if you have a ticketing system in place, it could be Intercom is, I guess, an example. So based on your experience, how big of a process is it to make sure that all that internal data that the model needs to sort of consume or that it needs to be trained on? Do companies typically have the data in a sort of clean enough format that they can just plug it in, like discussions that they have had in these ticketing systems, chat logs, and all these surveys and reports that they have been running with customers? Like, is it a very complex or a simple process these days to feed the model to basically complete the first step?
Well, obviously, there's not a clear answer to this, but basically, it's not as hard as we think because, I mean, the sentiment analysis on the latest models is so good. Let's say there's a chat log or let's say data from customer calls. I mean, these huge repositories of those. We are not just listening about the pain points, what the people actually asked. We are listening about how they felt. So, I mean, sort of like, when you look at this stuff, I mean, the sentiment analysis is a huge part of that stuff. So in a way, in the initial phases, before we plug this into every system, basically in the company, it's not as hard as we think. And also the static data, as I said, the customer insight reports and, company strategies, basically there's so much material already that it's not used, even on some, let's say, dusty server somewhere, right? So we can start pretty small. There's two things in here. One is that this is built on, obviously it works on APIs, and there's some systems which are already pretty in there. For instance, HubSpot, these kind of things. I mean, they're really easy to integrate, Dovetail, whatever, these kind of things. The modern SA SaaS systems are pretty good. There's also some antiquated or old systems where the data is not structured enough and these kind of things. Agreed. But yeah, in our experience right now working on this, sort of like, the initial data gathering hasn't been a problem. The issue has been that this should also, what we recommend our customers is that, I mean, this should be built scaling forward. So it's not just about giving people a new tool. Okay, now you have artificial customer. We will coach people and these kind of things and, how to onboard new teams. And if a new team comes across, then we need to create new personas. And then we need to sort of, get new data sources. So that's basically has been the bottleneck so far. Yeah.
And I know that in a few minutes we'll see a demo as well, but based on your experience, who has been the driving force in the organizations? Is it starting from sales department or customer success department or business development or top management? Like, whenever they come up with the idea, maybe with the help of you, they come up with the idea that, hey, we need this artificial customer to be part of the basically all the decisions we make. Who's often initiating that discussion? Is it coming from sales, customer success, top management, business development, or somewhere else?
There's two sort of like, let's go through this one. So I'll explain it after this and then we'll go to the demo. So it's basically everyone in a company that thinks the company should be more data driven. That basically then scales from top management to probably, I suppose, sales teams, customer experience teams, product development teams, and some business unit leads, for instance, that right now cannot launch and ship and create activities well enough. So these are basically the things. And I think, there's these 3 layers to this. We should, and we are sort of like, pitching this to top management, because we need to have a go-ahead from top management to be able to scale it, obviously. And then there's the customer insight teams, as I said, which are the next ones, the usual starting points. We're having lots of conversations with them, for instance, because the customer insight material and data is the most natural one to onboard first. Then question back, is there a company anywhere right now that doesn't want to be AI enabled? Right? And is there anyone in a company that says, okay, we're not going to do that? And this idea that this will be this almost populistic fashion, really familiar way to onboard people at scale working with AI seems to resonate super well as well. So basically, once again, there's no one answer to this. Top management and then these specific data, I suppose, teams which operations are dependent on understanding the market and how the customer behaves. Last slide before the demo is this. So how it's built, and I'm not going to present all the architectural stuff here, obviously, but how it's built. At first we go and we design the archetypes. I did this first time with a project for Google, I suppose, before Gen AI, that we created this trail running assistant. And we created actually a model how to design personalities, which is quite cool and quite weird, but it's kind of nice. So we start with the archetypes, which is basically we give character to the language model. This is how it will talk to you. This is how it will behave. And this is also sort of the things that it will, because there's so much data behind it often. So it will basically sort of screen the data to necessary things because of this personality and its need and stuff like that. Then the initial data stuff. Then we go into interface. Sometimes with our customers, we talk about having this unique interface, for instance, or sometimes it's more advisable that it's part of your stack. And then most importantly, then we think about the scaling, how many teams to be on board and this kind of thing. So that's basically how it works. Do you want to watch the video?
Yeah, let's do that. Let me share it, and then maybe you can walk us through what happens in the demo. So sharing screen. Here we go. And now I believe everyone should see it.
All right. And this is a really rough prototype. Okay, this is Anna. They are working at a telco. They're running, let's say, sales teams for SME sector. Okay, good morning. This should be ritualized in a fashion that they should be the first contact for anyway. So once again, it's not a dashboard. The LLM already based on the customer data and customer insights gives on the most important data points for the day. Doesn't need to see anything else. And then the artificial customer in this case is a small architectural agency, and they're worried that they haven't been seen. They don't really feel too good. Churn, for instance, has been an issue. The data has stated that there's not clear enough basically answers to this certain demographic. So Anna is okay, what's happening? That would be interesting to know and understand better. All right. Go deeper into customer insights. They don't want any enterprise perks and anything like that. Simple one contact person kind of servicing. Anna asks, okay, what should we do next? And then the model creates a concept. Can you stop for a second?
Yeah, just.
Yeah. No worries. Just go on. It's fine. All right. Create a concept. Care for 10, which means that okay, this would be tailor-made to this super small but important demographic and target group. Now you can continue. And then it will package it, create a tagline for it, create a pricing model for it, and basically a snapshot, and then Anna can send it to their team for production. So this is how it will work. Imagine this would have taken a traditional company utilizing traditional methods, let's say 6 weeks from need to execution or need to packaging. And now Anna did it in the morning when she had her morning coffee. So this is basically how it works. And I think, at scale, this would once again, make companies operate on a value creation level way better, and also introduce working with AI at scale. So that was a story of the artificial customer.
And you have some customers where this is already in production, helping their different teams, and obviously, I guess it's to some extent customized for each team or each profile, obviously based on your own role in the company, right?
Yeah, it's always customized because, I mean, there's two things here. One is that the customer data obviously is sensitive and it's like, related to a certain customer. So the data stuff is that. And also no customers or no companies are alike. It's like, when do we start onboarding people on this stuff, these kind of things? It depends. So it's partly, we have productivized basically the tooling and the tech part of it. So it's like, pretty ready to go. But this is also, once again, a change management kind of project in a way as well, because I mean, we need to onboard people and companies into this in a deep level.
Sounds good. And I'll continue 10 minutes explaining the importance of sort of external data in these type of solutions. In the meanwhile, if you have any questions to Petri, I think you can use chat, and then in 10-15 minutes we'll cover the questions that you might have. Let me go back to the presentation, and I believe now you can see the slide. So when I've been working with customers and potential customers, some of them, especially the bigger ones, they often have their own AI LLM initiative going on, and they are indeed building their internal tools like artificial customer. And one thing that we have seen, and also when we think of our own role in that type of projects, is that of course these solutions, they provide better insights if they have access to the best possible data. You already mentioned in your presentation, Petri, sort of many of the internal sources or data sources and insights that these models need to access. Could be chat logs, support tickets, maybe app engagement metrics, different type of internal wikis and CRM, of course, ERP, Teams, Slack, all type of places where there's lots of customer insights. Then how Vainu has played a role in these solutions is that Vainu is one of the potential external knowledge bases you might want to plug in to the model, because the answers simply are better if they have access to sort of proprietary data outside the initial training model and outside the internal data it can access. So here's an example. So now we could think of that let's imagine that I'm working as a consultant in a private equity firm, and I'm super keen on if I have a list of target companies or companies that I'm following, and I always need to automatically understand if there's any changes in equity. For example, if they have issued new shares or if they have converted some loans to equity or done other types of capital raises. So typical question or sort of a task you could give to an AI agent could be the artificial customer. So then what these solutions need to do, they need access to external knowledge base, especially if the sort of a solid answer requires that. In our case, this is maybe the most typical, or one of the most typical use cases is that financial statements, they of course include lots of insights, but often there's so many nuances outside the sort of the official income statement and balance sheets. You have the commentary, you have the notes, you have lots of text in these documents. So we've been storing that text into a vector database and make it searchable for these agents. So whenever you have a specific task in mind, in this case, to understand changes in equity, the model already knows that these are the pages in these documents where equity changes have been discussed. And then we can provide that information back to the model so that we can generate the answer and without doing any specific keyword searches or without basically asking, we can automate the whole process. And then whenever there's, for example, a new one of the target companies files the financial statement, automatically I could get notified by, for example, artificial customer that, hey, this company last year, they raised Series B round. This is the number of new shares they issued, and if they had any changes in the certain balance sheet line items, it can easily be highlighted, and you can also, of course, in your prompt and in your training, customize the tone and highlight the topics you want agent to focus on.
Mikko, can I have an initial sort of idea on this?
Yep.
Based on this great scenario, you could also, if you would be the analyst, you could then perhaps, let's say, try out the product market fit of the company that got the money on the B round, right? Let's say, okay, they would sell wellness, health tech tool or something like that, or software. You could basically like, okay, this is the target customer. Can you check out the product market fit? Can you come up with some, pain points or gaps in that stuff and these kind of things? Because the analysis of a company is not just based on numbers, it's based on it's almost like these soft metrics kind of way. Okay, how will the market react to it? So that would be really cool.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, again, it goes back to the sort of the data we have provided for the model that we need to, as long as we have given enough information about us, about our services, our products, and we also sort of give access to important sources for the model itself about the end customer, then definitely I think it performs super well when it comes to drafting a unique selling point or evaluating the product market fit, as you mentioned. So definitely a good use case. Here are some examples that our customers have been requesting. You mentioned APIs. So what we have recently focused a lot is to make Vainu API sort of LLM friendly, so that everything you get from the API is in a format that these LLM models can easily consume and use. Of course, company website, there's plenty of models that are doing live web search already, but I think maybe the most sort of proprietary data points that are very specific to Vainu financial statements, as I highlighted in the example, there's tons of public documents that are being published by cities and municipalities and welfare regions and whatnot. We typically talk about tens of thousands of documents on a monthly basis only in a country like Denmark. And you get all that, and no human is capable of reading it. And I think it's a little bit outdated to run like specific keyword searches there, but you can just make sure that you vectorize and you store that data into a vector database, and whatever the use case you have or the prompt that you're using, it can automatically find the relevant part of the document and use it whenever the model decides to notify you that, hey, now there's a new opportunity. This company was mentioned in one of the meeting minutes published by this city in Sweden. Job openings, they of course highlight some of the key things, what the company is looking for, what they need, what type of skill sets they have, press releases, and also plenty of other data points. So I think most of the sort of database companies, they need to make sure that their API is capable of providing the information in a LLM-friendly format, so that these internal concepts, internal LLM solutions like artificial customer can actually access them, like you said. And I agree, bigger SaaS companies like HubSpot and Intercom and the ones that you mentioned, they already do a good job that data can be accessed.
Can I nudge you a little bit? I mean, we were talking, had these initial conversations. The artificial customer is AI Act and GDPR compliant because basically you cannot trace the data to real data. I mean, it scrambles it and these kind of things. But for instance, imagine the contact data that you guys have, plus 2 million Nordic contacts. Imagine a sales team that could reflect based on these archetypes or personas, their activities and these kind of things. Once again, taking the data, amazingly valuable data, and making it sort of like, I suppose, once again, actionable and these kind of things. So there's so many things here that we could actually change and actually sort of like, make something amazing out of that.
Yeah, I think that's why one of the people in our revenue operations team was saying that what used to be RevOps, maybe it's some sort of agent ops going forward, because you can do so much more when you work with agents. So things that you did and used to take weeks or sometimes even months can now can be done in hours. But I think this is like that many of these companies like Vainu, we want to make sure that the API provides LLM ready data, and in our case we very heavily focus on the Nordic data, financial statements and public meeting minutes. But at the end of the day, I think this is the key question from our point of view, that if you make a decision to start a project like artificial customer or any other internal LM solution, is to, as you mentioned, the first step was to feed the important information and important insights to the model so that it can be trained on that data, and also that it can access proprietary data when providing the answer. So it's to think, what type of data does your own insights engine need to access? So internal knowledge bases, external knowledge bases, and then it's easier to build on top of that when it actually has the know-how and the information to be that strategic guide to the decision-making process. I have another poll here. Now, when you hopefully know a little bit more about the concept of artificial customer and of course also the importance of data and insights in the process, would be great if you take the time to answer this one, because I already asked from you, Petri, like what are the teams typically initiating these projects, but if you think which one of your teams would benefit the most from concept like this, is it coming from sales or marketing or product development or customer success or business development / strategy? I know that Vainu webinars often attract lots of people from sales, so the answers might be a little bit biased. So far, the last votes coming in, most people said that it's all votes more or less went to sales and marketing, but as I said, this might be a little bit biased since one webinars often attracts people.
Well, they're also correct.
As a marketing, so I'm going to stop the answers.
Well, they are also correct. I mean, it's the sales or business development or commercial functions in a company are a great starting point for this, obviously.
Yeah. Good. Now we can open up for questions. The one that I already saw is that what are the industries that are sort of leading the way with these concepts such as artificial customer? Do you see that technology companies are moving faster than the others, or maybe more traditional industries, I don't know, logistics or telcos? Like, what do you see when you meet with customers? What are the industries leading the way?
I have been surprised. There's two main domains. One is the companies who are have high volume of customers with a low interest product. Sorry to say, like insurance companies, banks, or telcos. So these are one of the sort of stereotypical sparring partners we work with at the moment. And the second one that surprised me is actually really big industrial companies, B2B purely B2B. Because imagine how sort of like, fragmented and complicated, let's say, the business development sales processes are on an industrial global company and stuff like that. And then also, I suppose, there has been so much talk about making B2B companies more customer insight driven. And this has been seen as one of sort of like, good vehicles to actually make it happen. So these are the two biggest ones at the moment.
Yeah. And then in the chat, there's a question, what kind of companies take the whole strategy plus AI customer into use? Do you see bias towards the strategy part or customer insights, or is it always the whole package? So
it's never the whole package. And I would say there is still understandably resistance on the higher echelons of company decision making, because we all know that we want to, there's probably a bigger psychological journey on utilizing something like the artificial customer on the top management. So usually the first door opener, as I said, are the sales teams or the customer insight teams. These are the main things. But we always say that this makes no sense to have this as just one tool in the customer insights team stack. We need to understand or believe that this will be a vehicle to once again make the whole company at some point work with AI. So there needs to be this bigger picture in the behind.
Yep. And then another question. Often these days people get excited about AI opportunities easily. I think it's faster and easier to try things out right away, and you get pretty solid initial results. But then maybe the excitement sort of fades away when it comes to the phase when you would actually need to put it into everyday use and get concrete business results out of it. So my question is, how long is typically this type of project? I know that it's a very difficult thing to answer, but do we talk about days, weeks, months, or years when it comes to starting from scratch, that you make a decision that, hey, I want to have artificial customer to join every single decision-making process and guide me through the strategy phases? Like how big of a project is it, and how long does it take until you have something concrete in production?
We don't know yet, because we haven't transformed the whole company with this yet. So that's an honest answer. This is why we have created these traps, beautiful traps in it. One, as a concept, it's probably interesting. This should be sold internally in a company like a consumer product. So that's one thing.
Yep.
The second one is that we have already we are providing coaching and onboarding people on just human to human level to working with it as well, not just giving them the tool, as I said in the beginning. That's one component of it. And then the third one is that excitement. Seriously, excitement. And just focusing on creating the excitement, also the results, but the excitement probably is even more important in the first phase, right? Yep. Okay, this is something that has transformed my, not just success metrics, but my everyday, my daily rituals and stuff like that. Little by little start onboarding it. Unless it's like it comes from top management, okay, this is the way of working and stuff like that, but that doesn't happen yet. So we don't know it. We don't have any evidence on this at scale yet, but working on it.
And then let's take one more question from the chat. Are LLMs models ready for strategy work? What model are you using to avoid hallucinations and old data bias? So are they ready for the strategy work, and how to avoid hallucinations?
They're ready in a sense if you don't look at them as a singular source of truth. But they're ready in a sense that they're able to make us think wider, think longer, think more accurate. And if you once again look at working with LLMs like co-authors rather than, let's say, calculators or Google, that changes everything. There's two levels to this. The algorithmic capability will come, that they will be super accurate, even on a mathematical level, which they're not yet. But also what we believe, and what I believe sincerely, is that we need to have this emotional track or empathic track as well. How to teach people or onboard people with working this stuff. The algorithmic capabilities will come. the more important thing is to change the way our own mental models work. And yeah, and also when you look at strategy work, coming up with 20 different scenarios instead of 3 most obvious ones, and then assimilating them into this probable most optimal future on a strategic level gives us a better result already than just doing it human to human. So they have a lot of benefits already.
And one thing that I want to add, maybe a little bit off topic to some extent, but I've been working with lots of like young people in my career, people joining their first, second, or third workplace. Very often people say that they at some point that they want to be part of the strategic decisions and they want to work with strategy. And I feel that maybe in the past you could say that strategy was to some extent sort of isolated, separate process. But nowadays I feel that if you have these tools in place, you can basically run scenarios and participate in that strategy process the moment you want, as long as these models have access to your internal data and maybe some external sources. You can start running these simulations yourself, and I feel somehow more people have a chance to participate in the strategy process because it is indeed an ongoing process, and everyone can contribute if they want. Do you see sort of the same thing happening?
Sure. But it's about old people like me that we need to be able to relinquish control. Once again, as I said in the beginning, it cannot be that leaders in companies will then micromanage these processes, right? So it's like, the change needs to happen from top down. I mean, the way leadership and management is seen has to shift enough that enables and allows then for these smaller agile teams, they might be young people, they might be old people, who cares, to make sort of like, quicker operations, faster, more efficient operations based on some sort of singular source of truth still, which is once again the voice of the masses or the voice of the markets. And then there's the delivery part. We need to deliver all of these insights in a way to people that make something happen. So actually the equation is quite simple. I mean, the ideation is quite simple. Of course, then we come into maturity levels in companies, or even sort of like, this, once again, ego or these superhuman kind of things even in companies that, okay, how deep we will be pushed this and this kind of stuff. But yeah, as an idea, definitely. And I think as a change dynamic, it needs to be at some point, once again, so like, being permissible or even better owned by